village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Hello folks, welcome back to Harrogate for another run this week. We've got a few more to cover on the eastern side of the former North Yorkshire district, and we're going to begin with this place, which looks like something and nothing. Well, if I tell you that that is a clay pigeon shooting ground, would that pique your interest? I'm sure there might be some clay pigeon shooters out there. Now, if you want to shoot clay pigeons here, you'll be doing so within and around the workings of a former quarry, Rainton Quarry. Welcome to the parish of Rainton with Newby. Rainton with Newby, clean place with new village. Hello Harrogate, we're back again. Today we're starting a run of 5 that will see us tackle some of the northeastern areas that still remain up here. We're beginning at a place called Rainton, which forms half of the parish of Rainton with Newby. We are about 6 miles north of Boroughbridge here and very close to Ripon and Thirsk. Rainton is the main village, but this one includes the deserted medieval village of Newby-on-Swale, which is now the site of Baldersby Park. The name Rainton comes from Old English and the personal name Regan or Regner, so most people believe anyway. However, there is a theory that it might have a Scandinavian influence, possibly from the Norse word hren, meaning clean place. By the early medieval period, Rainton was part of the Anglo-Saxon estate of Topcliffe, an important local centre before the Norman conquest. The surrounding fields and meadows would have supported farming long before the records began, as did the River Swale. In the Domesday Book, Rainton was listed under 2 different Norman landholders. One part belonged to Count Alan of Brittany, one of the most powerful northern barons, and the other part was held by William of Percy, an ancestor of the famous Percy family of Northumberland. The Domesday entries also note that some of the land was waste. Even so, Rainton recovered and remained a productive farming community. Newby has its own remarkable story. Once known as Newby-on-Swale, it was abandoned sometime after the 14th century. In the 18th and 19th centuries, Rainton grew into a typical North Riding farming village. It had a Wesleyan chapel, and a lot of its land was owned by the Earl de Grey. Newby was similarly agricultural, with a small population and a few farms. The village's traditional buildings, which are still on display today, include stone cottages, farmhouses, a smithy and a dovecote, and they reflect the local sandstone and cobble building style. Rainton therefore has a warm historic character that visitors love. Today, Rainton still has a strong community spirit too. It has excellent leisure facilities, including a recreation field with a children's play area opened in 2000. The cricket club, with its self-built pavilion, is also a proud symbol of village teamwork and hospitality. Rainton with Newby has links to notable historical figures, including the railway king George Hudson. We know a lot about him already, but his story also runs through Newby. Let's dive in and discover how. On the old maps you've just seen there, you may well have noticed the presence of several quarries. Rainton has a long history of using local stone, and records show that stone from both Rainton Quarry and King's Quarry was used in the construction of several village buildings. Stone quarrying around here goes back hundreds of years. The presence of early stone tools found on nearby Hutton Conyers Moor suggests that stone extraction in the wider area has ancient roots. It's likely even the Romans dug up parts of the ground here. By the 17th century, Rainton had become an estate village under the Robinson family, and stone from the local quarries was used in estate buildings. The growth of estate construction under the Marquis of Ripon in the 18th and 19th centuries increased the demand for that same stone. The quarries also supplied material for houses, farm buildings, and even the Methodist Chapel, built in 1868, and the Village Hall, built in 1872. However, most, if not all, of the extraction sites around here had ceased operations by 1898. Unfortunately, no direct employment records survive for Rainton's quarries, but we can generalise here. Quarrying was physically demanding work. They likely operated with small teams using hand tools such as hammers, wedges, and chisels. The old maps also show there was a windmill out here. There is no surviving windmill structure in Rainton today, but there's very little reason to disbelieve the map. Many villages in North Yorkshire once had windmills. Cundall and Ainderby Steeple are two nearby known examples. Given that Rainton had access to local stone from its quarries, a small stone tower mill would have been practical here. Windmills were essential for grinding grain into flour, and it's not as if Rainton was bereft of any farmland to grow it. Okay, here we are then in Rainton. There are two village greens in this place, and I'm beginning on the bigger of the two. And on this village green we have a memorial. Although this isn't a war memorial, this is from the millennium, the 1st of January 2000. Residents of Rainton, 1st of January 2000. And it lists them all. How about that? You don't see that very often, do you? On top, there's a compass. As you can see, tell you whereabouts you are and what sort of time it is. I think it acts as a sundial as well. Anyway, from this green, we can either go to the left or to the right. I'm going to go to the left because our first landmark is down there. It's the Bay Horse pub, and then later we'll end at that Methodist chapel right there. Now we're in the village. Let's get started with the Bay Horse. This is an 18th century coaching inn, according to its official website. That confirms the building has stood for more than 200 years, placing its origins firmly in the Georgian period. The website goes on to say that the inn is located midway between the Yorkshire Moors and the Dales and only minutes from the A1. That's a handy position to be in. It meant that travellers could reach the inn easily from major routes long before modern road systems were developed. The Bay Horse Inn is definitely an old stone building with several rooms arranged in a traditional layout. The pub contains a stone bar counter, wooden beams and white walls, which are typical features of rural Yorkshire inns. A few years ago, the Bay Horse was known to serve Black Sheep Bitter, Tetleys and York Guzzler on its hand pulls. Now, I've no idea if it still does, but those names are significant. It means the pub has a history of offering traditional local ales. The Black Sheep Brewery, for example, is based in Massam. The Bay Horse has its own resident ghost, apparently. Its website includes a section simply titled The Ghost, but it doesn't really elaborate on that. Who knows, maybe if you call in and sample the beer, you may be drinking with a spirit by your side. Now, there's not much in the way of new build streets here in Rainton, but there are a couple dotted around. Here's one of them. This is Robinson Avenue, and the name Robinson will definitely crop up a few times in this video, as you'll see when we get to Newby. This is Rainton Village Hall, and we already know it was built in 1872 using stone from those quarries on the edge of the place. It was built for the Marquis of Ripon and was initially not a village hall. Instead, it served as the infant school for Rainton's children. The building was used by Rainton Infant School until its closure in 1922, meaning the school operated for about 50 years. The National Archives still has a logbook for the years 1873 to 1922, and that's held at the North Yorkshire County Record Office. Why was this built from the Marquis of Ripon? Well, Rainton was an estate village under the Robinson family and later the Marquis until 1946. Estate villages often provided schools for young children, especially during the Victorian era. The school closed due to falling pupil numbers and so could no longer serve its original purpose. However, that solid stone construction ensured that it remained useful, and that's why it's now transitioned into being a village hall. It contains a main hall, a meeting room and a kitchen, all maintained to modern standards. The main hall can seat up to 50 people in a theatre layout, whilst the meeting room can seat 25. These capacities show that the building is suitable for both large and small gatherings. So you just caught the other little green there, the smaller of the two. That's right outside the village hall. Next door to the village hall, there's another interesting property. This house here, that is the old smithy. And we're gonna walk alongside that, and this very nice white house that's next to that, by the way. I do like that house. Down towards another pub called the Lamb Inn. To the Lamb Inn now, located on Main Street. The Lamb Inn has documented activity from at least the early 2000s through 2019, based on reviews and updates from several sources. The building's stone construction and traditional layout suggest that it predates modern housing in the village. Now, I'm not sure if this one is still open. In January 2019, a request was approved to mark the Lamb Inn as closed until further notice, based on information from the landlady's Facebook page. It's not explicitly clear if that closure was later made permanent. This was a well-run, friendly village pub, which also served local cask ales. Names such as Black Sheep appear in records here again, as does Acorn Barnsley Bitter and a rotating guest ale. The Lamb Inn also served meals alongside drinks and was an important part of the pub's identity. I think, given the evidence at hand, the Lamb Inn is definitely not open at the moment. If you know what's happening with that old pub though, by the way, do let me know in the comments down below. Time for us to move on. We're heading for the recreation ground. This is Rainton Recreation Field, which is the village's largest green space. It includes an excellent sports field and a compact pavilion, both used for outdoor activities. It's all managed by the Rainton Recreation Association, a registered charity. The recreation field has a children's play park, which is a well-loved and well-used facility with plenty of equipment for the younger Rainton residents. The recreation ground serves multiple age groups, including those who like a bit of cricket too. Rainton Cricket Club plays its home matches at the cricket field next to the play park. The club has 2 teams playing in the Nidderdale League. Now, where would a Yorkshire village be without a cricket team, I ask you? It's no mean feat reaching that recreation ground from the Lamin, because I had to walk on a footpath across a field, and the ground is very wet and boggy at the moment, so I now have wet feet, which is not good, but hey, it's all part of the experience. I would say it's good clean fun, but it's anything but clean right now. Okay, we have one little bit left in the village itself. We're off to find that Methodist chapel. Now here's another building that was made with that Rainton quarry stone. This is Rainton Methodist Chapel, and it was built in 1868. The chapel was constructed on land donated by the Marquis of Ripon, tying it directly to the estate's leadership. A Sunday school was added to the chapel in 1881, 13 years after the main building was completed. The foundation stone was laid by Sir Thomas Stevenson, a forensic scientist born in Rainton who later became a leading expert in toxicology. His participation in the chapel's development shows that the building had support from respected professionals. Stevenson was quite the man to know if you were involved with anything murderous in those days. He gave expert advice at the Old Bailey in several major Victorian murder trials. So this is the last landmark in the village, but we still have a question to answer. Where did the estate owners live? Well, they didn't live in Rainton. Instead, they lived at Newby Park. We know that now by a different name, Baldersby Park, and it's the site of Queen Mary's School. Okay, just before we go to Newby, there's just the small matter of leaving a card on the parish notice board, which is in the little shelter which you saw right at the beginning of this episode. This board is very tightly shut, by the way. It's not going to come open in a gust of wind or anything like that. Mind you, to be fair, it's sheltered by the actual shelter it's inside, so it's going nowhere fast. There we go. That is Rainton with Newby officially in the books. A word about this shelter, by the way. There's a little plaque in here. Let's have a read of it. Erected in 1953, the year of the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. Okay, now we find ourselves out to the east and we are close to Newby. You can't actually see Newby though, because it's a deserted medieval village. What you can see though is Baldersby Park. And Baldersby Park is otherwise known today as Queen Mary's School. It's over there. Now obviously we can't drive into this because it's a private road. The school's private. You would expect that to be a private lane, wouldn't you? But I can see some of it from here. Some of this will have to be done with pictures. This is Queen Mary's School at Baldersby Park. Its site covers 50 acres of landscape grounds, and that massive size is literally the biggest clue as to what it used to be. It was originally known as Newby Park, and at its centre was an early 18th century house built by Sir William Robinson. The design was created by Colin Campbell, a leading architect of the Palladian movement. The house is recorded as the first villa in England built in the Palladian style. That fact gives the estate a huge national architectural significance. The Robinson family owned the estate for generations and held the lordship of Rainton from at least 1602. Their influence shaped the development of the village and the estate buildings which we've already seen, like the village hall and the chapel. The construction of Newby Park in 1718 was part of their efforts to modernise the estate, and I think they did that rather well. Later improvements would also come along. In 1845, Newby Park was sold to George Hudson, the railway king. Hudson rebuilt the house and renamed it Baldersby Park. He added a northern front in the Jacobean style, while still retaining the Georgian south front. Hudson's ownership ended in 1854 when he was declared bankrupt and forced to sell the estate. The interior of Baldersby Park was reconstructed after a fire in 1902, an event which significantly altered the internal layout of the house. The reconstruction preserved the external Palladian and Jacobean features, however. Baldersby Park House is now a Grade 1 listed building, and it's no longer a residence. Instead, it's where Queen Mary's School is located. The school was founded in 1925 by the Woodard Corporation, originally at Duncan Park near Helmsley. The school began as a girls' preparatory boarding school with 23 pupils, which increased to 59 after 1 year. In 1931, the school was renamed Queen Mary's School after receiving permission from King George V and Queen Mary. In 1985, the lease on Duncan Park expired and the school moved to Baldersby Park, where it remains today, occupying the main house and the surrounding grounds. It has approximately 270 to 300 pupils, operating both preparatory and senior sections. The grounds include landscape parkland, historic trees, and the remains of the deserted medieval village of Newby-on-Swale, which this all sits upon, established long before Newby Park, Baldersby Park House and the school were ever thought of. As we leave Rainton with Newby, the village sits behind us with its clear mix of estate history and rural buildings. The Methodist Chapel from 1868, the old school from 1872, and the magnificent stone houses all show the influence of the Robinson family and the Marquis of Ripon. Further out, Baldersby Park and Queen Mary's School mark the wider estate that once controlled the village. The Palladian house, designed by Colin Campbell in 1718, remains one of the most important buildings in the area. Rainton with Newby shows its history in every building and every feature, from the chapel to the parkland. Time to tackle the country lane that leads to the next one. Tomorrow we've got a couple of crab-themed landmarks to discuss.
I remember the fields where the river kept its shine, when the old quarries rang with the strength of their grind. Stone cottages glowing in the soft evening light, and a chapel built sturdy, standing proud through each night. I've lived long enough that the seasons have spun, yet the heart of this place still beats like it done. So I sing as an elder who's wandered so far. Rainton with Newby lives in my heart like a star. I watch local folks shape each part of our day. Robinson hands guiding work in their way. The schoolhouse humming with laughter and chalk. The hall felt alive with each gathering and talk. I've lived long enough that the seasons have spun, yet the heart of this place still beats like it done. So I sing as an elder who's wandered so far. Rainton with Newby lives in my heart like a star. I recall the old inn where the travelers came, their boots on the stone, their faces aflame, and the cricket field echoed with cheers in the sun, where childhood felt endless and life had just begun. I've lived long enough that the seasons have spun, yet the heart of this place still beats like it done. So I sing as an elder who's wandered so far. Rainton with Newby lives in my heart like a star. Newby's old ground held its secrets beneath. The parkland spread wide like a breath in the heath. That grand old house stood noble and tall, with Hudson's bold changes pressed into each wall. Lives in my heart like a star.
Hello folks, welcome back to Harrogate once again. Now I've got a really good episode for you today. The village we're in is really small, but it does have a few quirky features. There's a lot of things in this place that are to do with seafood, especially Crab Manor and the Crab and Lobster restaurant. There is a certain maritime theme to this place, even though we are a long way inland. This is also the village where the Yorkshire Witch was born. Welcome to Asenby. Asenby, Astein's farm. Today in Harrogate, we come to Asenby on the southern bank of the River Swale. This is just over the border from Hambleton, and it's a quiet village of just over 300 people. Its location near the river and fertile farmland has made it a natural place for a settlement for a long time. The name Asenby comes from Old Norse. Most scholars agree it means Astein's farm, but some local historians note an alternative idea that it may mean residence of the gods from the Norse word Asa. Either way, there is a clear Scandinavian influence. Asenby appears in the Domesday Book under the name Estenby. At that time it formed part of a larger entry that also included Topcliffe, Crakehill, Dalton and Skipton-on-Swale. The record shows a busy and valuable settlement with 35 villages, a church, a mill and some extensive farmland. Before the Norman conquest, the land belonged to a Dane named Bernwulf. After that, William the Conqueror granted it to William de Percy, one of the most powerful Norman lords in the north. From then on, Asenby followed the history of the Percy family. During the medieval period, Asenby remained a farming settlement. Field names such as Bonny Car show Danish influence, with Car meaning marshy ground, typical of Viking-era land use. The village layout likely developed as a nucleated settlement. Now, one interesting feature of Asenby's past is its pinfolds. The village once had two of them, one near the crossroads and one near the old smithy. Today, only a fragment of one of their walls remains here, but there's a bungalow named Pinfold which keeps the memory alive. The River Swale has always been central to life in Asenby. It's one of the fastest rising rivers in England, and the parish still holds fishing rights along a stretch of it. Before Thirsk Swimming Pool opened in 1970, local children swam in the river during summer. Asenby also has links to the lively Topley Fair, once held over the river in Topcliffe. For 3 days each July, gypsies, horse dealers and travellers filled the area. Asenby residents often complained about the crowds, broken fences and even bare-knuckle fights by the riverbank. It's a bit more peaceful now. It's a lovely base for walking, cycling and exploring the Swale Valley. The village has several listed buildings, including Asenby Hall, Asenby Lodge, Rowcliffe House and several historic cottages and barns. One of the most famous people linked to Asenby is Mary Bateman, known as the Yorkshire Witch. Born in the village in 1768, her notoriety was linked with fraud and superstition. Her story remains a curious footnote in the village's history. Let's find out more about her. Let's get things moving with Asenby Community Park, located at the end of Jamesville Way, which is a residential road in the centre of the village. The park covers around 1 acre of grass, making it one of the largest public green spaces inside the village boundary. The park is owned and overseen by Asenby Parish Council, which manages the land and its facilities according to local needs. The park's earliest documented modern development came from the installation of children's play equipment, which was designed mainly for younger age groups. In 2023, Asenby Parish Council carried out a formal survey to gather views about how the park should be used in the future. The survey led to the formation of a volunteer group, which now helps maintain the park and plan future improvements. Although Asenby is a small parish with a population of just over 300 people, the park remains one of its most used public spaces. The village's size means that the park plays a practical role in providing outdoor recreation within walking distance for most residents. Now, rather annoyingly, there's no way onto the A168 there, or at least I couldn't see one on the map, and I couldn't see one just in the park there. So I've got to be quite creative with this route. Even so, the walk around Asenby is actually quite an easy one. So let's head up Jamesville Way to the main road that runs through the village, and that's where we'll find Crab Manor. Asenby has a few landmarks which make reference to crabs, as in the seaside creatures that walk sideways. This is Crab Manor, located on Dishforth Road, and it's officially listed as a Grade 2 listed building on the National Heritage List for England. The manor is an 18th century Georgian house built during a period when symmetrical design and classical proportions were common in English country houses. Its Georgian origins are a key reason for its Grade 2 listed status. Crab Manor became part of a hospitality business in the early 1990s following the success of the nearby Crab and Lobster restaurant, which opened in 1991. The restaurant's popularity led to the purchase of the manor house, which was then converted into themed accommodation. It originally opened with 7 themed bedrooms, each designed to represent a different world destination. Over time, this number expanded significantly. Today, the site offers 20 themed rooms, making it one of the most unusual hotel properties in North Yorkshire. The rooms are inspired by locations such as Bora Bora, Dubai, Singapore, and Lapland, each decorated and using imported artefacts and bespoke furnishings. In addition, the property sits within 7 acres of landscaped grounds, which include thatched lodges and Scandinavian log cabins. The manor's themed rooms include luxury features such as private saunas, roll-top baths, heated floors, and mood lighting, depending on the suite. These features are documented on its official website. Some rooms also include private terraces and outdoor seating areas too. Now that's fancy. Now, next to Crab Manor, there's an area that looks a bit overgrown. This holds a fascinating secret, and the best thing about it is that it's only half of its story. Do you remember the City of Troy turf maze at Dolby-cum-Scoresby? Well, Asenby has 2 of them. They are, or were, the Fairies Hill Maze, which was documented by Edward Trollope in 1858, and the Maiden's Bower Maze, which sits within this overgrown area. Trollope described the Fairies Hill Maze as 17 yards in diameter with a 336-yard path. Maiden's Bower was 27 metres across. Fairies Hill has apparently disappeared now, but Maiden's Bower is still here. It lies on a mound behind the Crab and Lobster restaurant, and it's described as a stepped earthwork. The site is said to preserve a Chartreuse-style labyrinth beneath the grass. The 2 mazes may well have been connected in some way. Documents for Maiden's Bower make reference to how people would walk its path and listen for fairies singing at the centre. Maiden's Bower may well sit on what was a Motte and Bailey castle mound. This means the site may have older origins than the turf maze itself. The combination of earthwork and labyrinth tradition makes it unusual. Even though the maze pattern is no longer visible, you can still climb the mound thanks to a footpath through the trees. The Fairies Hill Maze site is now under the grass at Crab Manor. That's according to something called the Hobthrush investigation, which took place last year. A flat, circular grassed area with a low bank in the Crab Manor Gardens matches Trollope's measurements of 17 yards across. The feature has been used as a golf putting green in recent years, but the size and shape strongly support the idea that it was the maze site. Now, I've got to be honest with you, I didn't know what to expect at this particular point, because I didn't know how much of Maiden's Bower I'd be able to see, and as it turns out, we haven't actually seen it at all. We have actually seen the site of Fairies Hill though, because that is the little putting green that I've just mentioned. You see, we've had to walk through the grounds here of Crab Manor, which is absolutely legal, by the way, because there's a footpath that runs across the site. So don't think you're trespassing here, because you're not. There is a marked footpath. Now, if you follow said footpath, which isn't easy by the way, you come to the Crab and Lobster restaurant, which is down there. Now, I've been able to smell this all the way around Asenby so far, and it smells absolutely gorgeous. Let's have a look at it. Now we come to the Crab and Lobster on Dishforth Road. The building was once known as the Shoulder of Mutton, a traditional English pub recorded in local directories during the 19th and early 20th centuries. It was a well-known stop for travellers moving between Thirsk and Ripon. The earliest known reference to the Shoulder of Mutton appears in 19th century trade listings, which identify it as one of Asenby's key licensed premises. The name Shoulder of Mutton was a common pub name across rural England. The building later became part of the Crab Manor estate and became the Crab and Lobster restaurant in 1991, marking a major change in the building's purpose and identity. The new owners developed a seafood-focused menu, which was unusual for a rural village pub at the time. The restaurant quickly earned a strong reputation, eventually receiving 2 AA rosettes for food quality. The award placed it among the higher-rated dining venues in North Yorkshire. The Crab and Lobster is known for its eclectic interior, which includes antique maritime objects. It has unusual decorative pieces sourced from around the world. These items give the restaurant a distinctive identity that differs from the plain interior of the old Shoulder of Mutton. The decor has become one of the restaurant's most recognisable features. Okay, so time to move on around the village again. We're now on the main road that loops around the sort of western edge of Asenby, and then it runs back into the village, and we'll see the rest of the residential area that we've not yet covered in a moment. There's not much in this first bit though, so it's going to be a little bit bland and boring, I'm afraid, but we will be back into the houses shortly. Okay, we've made it all the way through Asenby, and as you can tell, very residential, isn't it? Apart from the Crab and Lobster, Crab Manor, and a few other bits and bobs. Now, while we're talking about residents of this place, that brings us to the Yorkshire Witch. Now, so far we haven't really discussed any notable people from Asenby, but there is one woman who stands out more than most. Her name was Mary Bateman, but a lot of people who know of her call her something else, the Yorkshire Witch. Mary Bateman was born in 1768 in Asenby. Her birth name was Mary Harker, and her father worked as a farmer, which placed her in a rural household from the beginning. Mary learned to read and write as a child, which was not a guarantee for girls in rural Yorkshire during the late 18th century. Her literacy, though, later helped her create written charms and messages that would eventually be used to criminal ends, most notably fraud. It's a classic example of how early education sometimes played a direct role in crime. At the age of 13, Mary left Asenby to work as a servant girl in Thirsk. That was her first recorded employment, and it placed her in a household where domestic duties were her priority. It didn't last long. Mary was dismissed from at least one early job for stealing. Moving to York at the age of 20 years old, Mary sought work as a dressmaker, but that didn't last long either. Somehow, some way, Mary became involved in a burglary, so her criminal nature had clearly gone with her. After leaving York, Mary settled in Leeds, working as a mantua maker, producing women's clothing. The pay for that work was low. On the side, though, Mary was able to offer fortune-telling services to supplement her income, and became known locally as a wise woman. Mary married John Bateman, a wheelwright, in 1792, and took his surname. The couple had at least 2 children, although some sources suggest there may have been more. Her marriage did not stop her criminal activities, though. After being arrested several times for theft during the 1790s, Mary repeatedly avoided long-term punishment by bribing witnesses or exploiting legal loopholes. In 1796, John Bateman joined the army, and Mary travelled with him for a short time before returning to Leeds within a year. Her return to Leeds marked the beginning of her most active period as a fraudster, resuming fortune-telling and selling potions and charms that could remove curses or protect against evil. Well, allegedly anyway. One of Mary's early documented frauds involved a major fire in Leeds. It saw her walking the streets asking for donations for the victims, but her plan was to keep the money and the goods for herself. A wise woman indeed. Mary often used imaginary figures to support her scams, including a fictional woman named Mrs. Moore, a so-called advisor. Victims were told that money or goods had to be sent to Mrs. Moore for magical purposes, but in reality, Mary kept everything for herself, and no such woman ever existed. Mary also created another fictional advisor named Mrs. Blythe in around 1806. Now, Mrs. Blythe was supposedly another wise woman who could remove curses and predict the future. Mary used this character to manipulate victims into giving her money, clothing, and food. One of Mary's most famous hoaxes was the Prophet Hen of Leeds in 1806. Of her own creation, the hen supposedly laid eggs with the words "Christ is coming" written on them. People paid a penny each to see the eggs, believing they were real. The Prophet Hen hoax was exposed when it was discovered that Mary had written on the eggs with ink and then reinserted them into the hen's body. It was this hoax that became most widely known and contributed to her reputation as the Yorkshire Witch. Now, amazingly, none of these crimes were her most serious. That involved William and Rebecca Perigo, a couple from Leeds who sought her help. Rebecca suffered from chest pains, and Mary claimed it was down to a curse. As a remedy, magical puddings and powders were sold and fed to the Perigos, but they were laced with poison, which caused Rebecca's health to decline. The poison was later identified as arsenic, and Mary took money and goods from the couple while pretending to treat Rebecca. Rebecca Perigo died in 1808, and Mary continued to visit William, claiming that the curse was still active, telling him he needed to keep paying her to protect himself. William eventually became suspicious and contacted the authorities. When Mary's home was searched, investigators found poison, personal items belonging to victims, and written charms used in her scams. Although suspected of other poisonings, the Perigo case was the only one that was formally prosecuted. Mary was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death by hanging. The sentence was carried out on the 20th of March 1809 at York in front of a large crowd. Here's a bit of irony though. After her execution, Mary's body was publicly displayed, and strips of her skin were reportedly sold as charms believed to ward off evil. Her reputation as the Yorkshire Witch grew after her death, partly because of the sensational nature of her crimes. Time to leave Asenby. What a wonderful mix of old farm buildings, Georgian houses and quiet lanes this is. You can still picture the old maize site, the traces of the pinfolds and the stories of people like Mary Bateman woven into the land. As we head down the road, the sense of leaving a small but distinctive place lingers for a moment through its stories and its landmarks. And if nothing else, it proves one thing: even the smallest villages can have bigger histories than their road signs might suggest.
By the fast river's edge where the farmland spreads wide, Hastings' old ground sits by the shifting tide. Estannaby named in the doomsday hand, villagers, mill wheels and church on the land. Percy men held it after Bernwulf's fall, fields shaped by Norse folk still echo through all. Asenby, Asenby, carved in earth and sky, mazes on the hillside where old paths lie, pinfold stones and fishing rites, tales that never fade, a village with a heartbeat in every field made. Fairies were once circled with a turf-cut ring, maidens bow a rising where the legends cling. Crab Manor standing with its Georgian grace, cabins and gardens in a wandering place. Children swam the river when the sun burned bright, Topley Fair roared over 3 days and nights. Asenby, Asenby, carved in earth and sky, mazes on the hillside where old paths lie, pinfold stones and fishing rites, tales that never fade, a village with a heartbeat in every field made. Born in this parish where the river runs strong, Mary Harker stepped early on a path gone wrong. Servant working thirst then leads drew her in. Charms, tricks, and potions masking deeper sin. Prophet hen marvels eggs marked by her hand. Perigo sorrow spread across the land. Justice reached her at last beneath York's grey sky. Her name carried onward as the crowds passed by. Now the park at Jamesville Way holds the village green, volunteers shaping what the parish has seen. Old cottages and lodges stand firm and proud. Asenby's spirit speaks steady, strong and loud. Asenby, Asenby,
Hello folks, welcome back to Hambleton again. Hambleton? No, I said Hambleton there, didn't I? I meant Harrogate. It's Harrogate. It's easy to get them mixed up. Anyway, welcome back to Harrogate once again. And today we are going to take on a smaller village than the two that you've seen so far this week. You've seen two fairly big ones in Asenby and Rainton with Newby. This one's a bit smaller. It does have two settlements within it though. There's a main village, which is where I'm standing now, and there's a little hamlet which is barely more than just a farm. This is Cundall with Leckby. Cundall with Leckby, Rabbit Valley with Lecker's Village. Today on TVI we come to Cundall with Leckby, which as the name would suggest is made up of the village of Cundall and the tiny hamlet of Leckby. It sits close to the River Swale and lies in quiet farmland between Burbridge and Thirsk. The name Cundall likely comes from Old English or Old Norse. Many scholars believe it means Valley of the Coney, or alternatively Valley of the Rabbit. Rabbit and Coney of course are the same thing. There is a third theory that it might mean Valley of the Hound. Whatever the case, it does hint at the area's early wildlife. Leckby is thought to have Norse origins too, and it goes some way towards proving that the Vikings once settled or farmed here, as they did across much of North Yorkshire. Long before the Vikings, the land around Cundall was shaped by earlier peoples. The River Swale was used by the Romans, for example. There's no Roman sites in this parish, but they would have known the area, seeing as we're not a million miles away from Aldborough. By the early medieval period, the area was firmly part of the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Northumbria. Pre-conquest, the land belonged to Earl Waltheof, one of the last great Anglo-Saxon nobles. It then appears clearly in the Domesday Book, where it's listed as Cundall in the Halliceld 100. The entry shows that Cundall was a small but valuable farming settlement. It had 5 villages, 20 ploughlands, and a good amount of arable land. Through the medieval period, Cundall and Leckby remained agricultural, and they still are today. Neither Cundall nor Leckby are great big villages. Between them they have a tiny population, and they don't have many landmarks either. The parish church of St Mary and All Saints is one of the better ones that it does possess. Together, Cundall and Leckby have 8 listed buildings, all Grade 2. These include historic farmhouses such as Cundall Hall Farmhouse, Low House, Eagle Farmhouse and Cundall Lodge Farmhouse, and most of them date from the 17th to the 19th centuries. Then there's Cundall Manor School, an independent affair set up in some attractive grounds. It's one of the most notable modern institutions in the parish, serving children from a wide region around the two villages and beyond. Cundall is also one of Britain's rare thankful villages, meaning it lost no soldiers in the First World War. The surrounding countryside is perfect for walking, cycling and wildlife watching. Beautifully simple, rural and quiet, this little corner of North Yorkshire has a special place all of its own. Our main walk today will be in Cundall, but before we can get to that we need to get Leckby out of the way. To do that we need to drive it. Leckby is a small hamlet, which is little more than just a farm and a few scattered houses close to the River Swale. The hamlet is recorded as early as the medieval period, and its name is believed to come from Old Norse. Nobody's really sure what Leckby means though. We do know it once formed part of the Birdforth Wapentake, one of the admin areas used in the medieval period. Leckby is not listed separately in the Domesday Book, but historians agree that it was included within the wider entry for Cundall. The land all belonged to Earl Waltheof before the Norman conquest and later passed to Count Robert of Mortain. This means Leckby's early history is tied directly to one of the most powerful landowners in Norman England. It all went south though because the land value here fell after the conquest. Leckby's early farms may have suffered during that period of upheaval. By the 13th and 14th centuries, Leckby had been recognised as a small farming settlement. Medieval records describe fields, meadows and pastureland in the area, which indicates that mixed farming was the main activity. Leckby remained small and agricultural throughout the early modern period, with no evidence of large-scale industry or any major estates. Maps from the 18th and 19th centuries show only a handful of buildings. The 1820s and 1890s directories both mention several farms in the area, and Leckby's landscape today still follows the same pattern seen in the 19th century. Farm buildings are mainly what you'll find here, and that brings us to Palace Farm. Palace Farm is one of the most important sites in Leckby, and it's often used as a reference point for locating the hamlet. To be honest, it took me a while to pin down exactly where Leckby was at first. This farm helped. Palace Farm's name is unusual, as there's no evidence of a palace on this site. However, names were sometimes used to mark a large or well-established farm. Palace has long been associated with mixed farming, including arable crops and livestock. Okay, so we've made it into Cundall then, and here I'm standing next to a semi-derelict barn, brick barn, which is kind of at the edge of the village. We're going to walk through Cundall village, up to the church, and then to Cundall Manor School. Those are the only two major landmarks there are in this village. But it's a nice circular walk. I'm hoping it's not going to be too muddy underfoot, because at one point I will need to walk up Church Lane, which isn't a made road. It looks on the map like it's a dirt track of some description. So hopefully my feet are prepared for that. Cundall is definitely more of a village, but it's only slightly larger than Leckby. The name Cundall is believed to come from Old English or Old Norse, possibly meaning Valley of the Coney or Valley of the Hound. Before the Norman conquest, the land belonged to Earl Waltheof, and after 1066 it passed to Count Robert of Mortain. That makes Cundall one of the many Yorkshire villages whose early history is tied to once important major figures in Norman England. Like Leckby, Cundall developed as a farming village with open fields, meadows and pasture land forming the basis of its economy. Manorial records show that tenants worked strips of land under the control of local lords, a system that was common across Yorkshire. The village layout follows a simple pattern, with houses and farms arranged along some narrow lanes leading towards the church and the surrounding fields. Cundall has kept its historic form without any major expansion. Cundall contains several listed buildings, all at Grade 2, which developed with the farms. These include Cundall Hall Farmhouse, Low House, Eagle Farmhouse and Cundall Lodge Farmhouse. Many of those properties date from between the 17th to the 19th centuries. One of the most interesting structures in the parish is a 3-storey dovecote near Cundall Lodge Farmhouse. Dovecotes were once symbols of status, as only certain landowners were allowed to keep pigeons in them. Fast forward to wartime, and we learn then that Cundall is one of Britain's rare thankful villages, meaning it lost no soldiers in the First World War. Only a few dozen villages in the entire country share that distinction, so Cundall is part of an exclusive club. Cundall's population has always been small, which is probably a good reason why it never lost anyone. Census data shows that its population has remained under 200 residents for most of the 19th and 20th centuries. So as it turns out, Church Lane isn't even a road at all. It's a footpath, and a very muddy one at that. But this does at least take us to the church, which weirdly is going to be the only church I'll see today. That's unusual, isn't it? Landmarks here are few, but if there's one that sticks out, it would be St Mary and All Saints Church. It's one of the 8 Grade 2 listed buildings within Cundall and Leckby. The present church was rebuilt in 1854 and 55, giving it a Victorian Gothic appearance that still defines it today. The rebuilding followed the Gothic Revival style, which was popular at the time. The site itself is much older and served the parish long before the Victorians were around. Records show that a medieval church stood here, though little of that building survives above ground today. The church's west tower is one of its most recognisable features. It's built in 3 stages with simple lancet openings. The tower houses the church bell, which has been used for services and events for generations. Inside the church, the nave and the chancel follow a straightforward layout. The interior includes wooden pews, a stone font and a simple altar, all typical of mid-19th century church furnishings. The font is believed to be Victorian, replacing an earlier medieval one. The stained glass windows in the church date mainly from the 19th century and include designs featuring biblical scenes and saints. The windows were installed during or shortly after the rebuilding and were funded by local families. Although Cundall is a thankful village for the First World War, later conflicts did affect local families. As such, the churchyard here includes war memorial inscriptions for local men who served in those, as well as a list of all those who served in the First and Second World Wars. Now, if you stand outside the porch here of the church here in Cundall, you can see in the distance there's a big house. Let me just hop out of the way. Can you see the big house in the distance? Just there. That's Cundall Hall. Next for us, though, we're heading that way to the main road that goes down through Cundall from north to south, and opposite the entrance to the church is Cundall Manor School. This is Cundall Manor School. It's an independent day and boarding school that serves pupils aged from early years to senior level. The school was founded in 1959, making it a mid-20th century educational institution with more than 60 years of history. It began as a small preparatory school and expanded steadily over the decades. It originally only served a limited number of pupils. At first, the school occupied buildings that were once part of Cundall Hall's estate. Estate records show that the hall and its grounds were sold and adapted for school use in the mid-20th century. This change of use preserved the site, with classrooms created inside former estate structures. It has expanded significantly since. In the late 20th century, it added new classrooms, sports facilities and boarding houses. The school can now offer a broad curriculum that includes academic subjects, sports and creative activities. Whilst most schools usually get periodic visits from Ofsted, Cundall Manor School is registered with the Independent Schools Inspectorate, or ISI. They carry out regular inspections. Reports from the ISI are generally good here, confirming the school meets required standards for teaching. That said, Cundall Manor School continues to update its facilities, with recent projects including even newer classrooms and improved sports areas. Today, Cundall Manor School remains one of the most significant institutions anywhere in North Yorkshire. And here we are back in the centre of Cundall after a nice little walk around. Fairly easy walk, to be fair. The hardest bit was walking up Church Lane, of course, which was all muddy underfoot, but I managed it. Time to move on. Cundall with Leckby may sit in a quiet corner of North Yorkshire, but what we have here are two small settlements that have existed for centuries. They've been shaped by farming, the River Swale, and long-standing local estates. Modern features such as Cundall Manor School sit alongside the older elements, creating a place where different periods of history can live close together in harmony. Cundall with Leckby will always offer you a calm setting, but you'd best believe there are stories behind it all.
Land, Roman paths nearby, Norse names in the air, fields worked by villagers with steady care. Cundall with Leckby, carved in earth and sky, farms, church, towers, and the river running by. Thankful hearts remembered when the war drums roll, a parish small in number, yet strong and bold. It's marked by palace in name, though no grand hall ever claimed that fame. Birdford sold records kept its presence clear, pasture and meadow through each passing year. Cundall with Leckby, carved in earth and sky, farms, church, towers, and the river running by. Thankful hearts remembered when the war drums roll, a parish small in number, yet strong. Stands tall and still, three-story stonework by the farmhouse hill. St. Mary's Tower calling parish folk near, Victorian arches built with purpose clear. Through Saxon hands, Norman rule and farming days, through Roman tracks and Norse marked ways, two small places shaped by working ground, holding their spirit in every sound. Cundall with Leckby, carved in earth and sky, farms, church, towers, and the river running by. Thankful hearts remembered when the war drums roll, a parish small in number, yet strong and bold. Cundall with Leckby, carved in earth and sky, farms, church, towers, and the river running by. Thankful hearts remembered when the war drums roll, a parish small in number, yet strong and bold.
Hello folks, welcome back to Harrogate once again. Now, today we're right on the border between Harrogate and Hambleton. Marking the border here is a river, and it's a river we know very well. It's the River Swale. Now, to get over the River Swale here, you have to use a bridge, and that's exactly what these vehicles are doing right now. They are using the bridge that gives this hamlet its name. That right there is Thornton Bridge. Thornton Bridge, bridge where the thorn bushes grow. Okay, to finish this week off, we have two small ones that are barely even on the map. Tomorrow's episode has virtually nothing to speak of really, but that can wait its turn. Today we're in Thornton Bridge, and this definitely has something. Thornton Bridge is located between Boroughbridge and Thirsk and close to the River Swale. The parish has no large village, only scattered cottages and farms around the site of the old manor house. The name Thornton comes from Old English and means farm or settlement where the thorn bushes grow. Now you may well find some thorn bushes around here, but you'll also find a bridge, as the full name of this place would have you believe. That bridge crosses the River Swale, and by far and away it's the biggest and best known thing in Thornton Bridge. So it should be, given it's part of the parish's title. The bridge is fairly modern, but there are ideas that there was a much older way to cross the Swale here. We know for sure there was a stone bridge before the current crossing that's made of cast iron. Built in 1865, the modern one spans 98 feet in a single elegant arch. The older stone structure was beforehand an important crossing point in the region. Was there a bridge at the time of Doomsday? Well, possibly. Thornton Bridge appears in the book where it's recorded as belonging to Gospatrick. The entry proves that the parish was already an established farming area, but it doesn't tell you if you could cross the Swale. The Tudor-era writer John Leyland described the river here as a deep and swift stream, and he reckoned the crossing was challenging. That would imply that you maybe had to ford it back then. If not, it was maybe crossed using a wooden bridge of some sort, probably a rickety one at that. If there was a bridge here in the 13th century, the powerful Mowbray family would have known it, as the manor became associated with them at that time. Thornton Bridge was later linked with several noble families, including the Courtenays, the Nevilles, the Tancreds and the Stricklands. One of the most dramatic stories linked to Thornton Bridge is that of Roger Strickland, who lived at the manor in the 17th century. In 1689 he was accused of following King James II to Ireland and was charged with high treason. Although the evidence was weak, he was exiled and lost his estates, giving the parish a direct link to the political turmoil of the Glorious Revolution. Thornton Bridge Hall served as the home of these noble families, and it still stands today. Let's check that out, as well as Thornton Bridge itself. You can't begin any video of Thornton Bridge anywhere else but at the bridge itself, really. This is literally Thornton Bridge, and it stands over the River Swale. Its present iron form dates to 1865, when it replaced an older stone bridge on the same site. The bridge sits at the eastern end of the parish and defines the old boundary between Harrogate and Hambleton. Its location has long made it an important crossing point on the route between the areas, and the river's width and speed means a permanent structure is needed here. The stone bridge, which preceded this, was made up of 3 arches. It's not known when it was built, but the stone bridge served travellers for centuries. By the mid-19th century it was no longer suitable for growing transport needs, and that prompted the construction of the replacement. The current bridge is made of cast iron, and it even attracted the attention of the architectural historian Nicholas Pevsner. The bridge spans 98 feet in a single arch, which was a significant engineering achievement for its time in rural North Yorkshire. By the time the iron bridge was built, the River Swale was known for its unpredictable flow, so a strong and reliable crossing was essential for local travel. The single-span design avoided the need for piers in the water, reducing the risk of damage during floods. Thornton Bridge was officially recognised for its historic and architectural importance when it was listed Grade 2 in 1987. Now, look on old maps of the area and you may notice the roads leading to this bridge don't look the same. In recent times, the roads have changed their layout a little bit. That's all to do with the bridge, because it's required several periods of repair due to its age and narrow structure. Due to its listed status now, any work on the road leading to it must follow the same heritage rules. The most clearly documented road realignment connected to Thornton Bridge comes from a North Yorkshire County Council contract published in 2015. It was a project that cost between £275,000 and £325,000, although the final awarded value was only £195,000. It saw Thornton Bridge undergo major structural maintenance, with the road only open to pedestrians and cyclists. The York Press reported that the work had to stop early because lampreys were found spawning under the bridge, which triggered environmental protection rules. This event demonstrates how environmental factors can affect road engineering at a historic site. Okay, so that's the bridge. What about the rest of this little hamlet? Because there are some residences here. It's not one of those parishes that's completely bereft of anybody. People do actually live here. So from the bridge, if you go along this road and turn left, that road over there takes you down towards Boroughbridge. And as you can see, there's a couple of houses there. One of those in particular is of great note to us. Thornton Bridge was once part of the parish of Brafferton before becoming its own civil parish in 1866. The area around the bridge was recorded in the Domesday Book, where it appeared under the name Torrentone, showing the site has been recognised for more than 900 years. The Domesday entry notes that the land belonged to Gospatrick in 1086, and by the 13th century it had passed to the Mowbray family, one of the major landholding families in medieval Yorkshire. For hundreds of years, the main residence at this vital river crossing was Thornton Bridge Hall. The hall is historically important because it served as the manor house for the area and was linked to several noble families over many centuries. Its presence helps explain why the parish name survived from the medieval period to the present day. Thornton Bridge Hall in its time has been connected to the Strickland family, a mob that included Roger Strickland. He was attainted in 1689 after supporting James II during the political crisis of that year. He was exiled rather than executed because the evidence was considered weak. And so that's Thornton Bridge. It contains only a few buildings, including Thornton Bridge Hall and some cottages, and is mostly known for the actual bridge that crosses the River Swale. You have to admit though, a cast iron 98-foot single span arch is a thing of beauty. Today, Thornton Bridge remains quiet, rural and historically rich. Its landscape, buildings and records show more than 900 years of documented history. Anyway, if you think this one was over in a flash, wait until you see tomorrow's episode.
Where thorn and grown ground meets the river strong sweet, cottages scattered while the river runs deep. Old tracks hidden faintly at a crossing long gone. Stone arches once stood where the iron stands on. Thornton Bridge cast in iron and pride, one bold arch stretch across the wild stride. Past and present meeting where the waters glide. Thornton Bridge standing firm at the river's side. Mowbrays held power when the manor was young. Courtenays, Nevilles, Tancreds, all among names that shaped the parish through each age. Each call Strickland's fate echoing through the manor hall. Thornton Bridge cast in iron and pride, one bold arch stretch across the wild stride. Past and present meeting where the waters glide. Thornton Bridge standing firm at the river's side. 19th century builders forged the span we see, 98 feet sweeping clean and free. As the marked its grace in a rural scene, road shifted later as repairs grew key. Torrentone written in the old book's page, manor walls standing through each passing age. Exile upheaval, noble names that stayed, all held together where the river has played. Thornton Bridge cast in iron and pride, one bold arch stretch across the wild stride. Past and present meeting where the waters glide. Thornton Bridge standing firm at the riverside.
folks, welcome back to Harrogate for the last episode this week. Now, so far today I've avoided the worst of the wind and the rain because it's been swirling around, but it's not been too bad, to be fair. This last one is going to be in the worst of the wind and the rain because it's just starting to come down a bit, but it's not a problem because most of this one will be done in the car. There's no Strava route today because there's not really much of a walking route. To be fair, there ain't much to this place at all. This is Humberton. Humberton, Huns Fortified Farm. Rounding off the week, we have the tiny parish of Humberton. This lies 2 miles east of Boroughbridge Bridge and sits on the northern side of the River Ure, giving it a peaceful riverside setting that shaped its story for centuries. The name Humberton comes from Old English and means Huns Fortified Farm or settlement, showing that the site began as an early defended farmstead. That etymology suggests Saxon origins because fortified farmsteads were common in the early medieval period. By the time of the Domesday Book, Humberton was recorded as being held by Gospatrick. The entry also states that part of Humberton belonged to the soak of the King's Manor of Aldborough, showing it was tied to one of the most important royal estates in Yorkshire. So all of that proves that Humberton was already a recognised settlement nearly 1,000 years ago, but there isn't much of one here now. For centuries after Domesday, Humberton was divided between the parishes of Kirby Hill and Aldborough. The division lasted until 1866, when Humberton finally became its own civil parish. During the medieval period, the land around Humberton was mainly agricultural, and that remains true today. It's a wide rural landscape of fields, hedgerows and farmhouses. But that's all there is. The parish has always been small in population. In 2013, the estimated population was 50 people, showing how rural and quiet the area remains. Population records also show that Humberton experienced a high mortality decline after 1850. That was mainly due to infant mortality, which was common in rural areas at the time. The 1950 population was actually its peak before it declined between 1900 and 1950. It did rise again in the late 20th century, but never to the same level. Regardless of the numbers, agriculture was and still is the main form of work. Occupations such as farming, domestic service and animal care have dominated its past. Humberton is still dominated by farms and open fields now. There is no village here, it's more a case of a scattered and isolated set of buildings and farms. However, its location between two rivers makes this a beautiful place for those who like a bit of natural photography. Herons, swans and otters often make the area appealing to nature lovers. There are several traditional farmhouses, including Humberton Farmhouse, which appears in local heritage listings. In short, don't expect to come here and see much. Although small, it offers a sense of deep time and peaceful beauty that many larger places cannot match. Humberton doesn't have many properties. This one here isn't even in the hamlet. This is still within Humberton Parish though. It's Burton Grange Farmhouse and theoretically its postcode placed it within Helperby. Why am I showing you this then? Well, this beautiful Georgian farmhouse is more than just a house. It's a bed and breakfast too now. It's a wonderful, family-friendly, self-catering farmhouse holiday cottage. It sleeps 4, has 2 double bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and a spacious yet cosy living area. Burton Grange Farmhouse appears on 19th century OS maps, confirming that the building existed by at least the mid-1800s. The maps show the farmhouse as part of a cluster of agricultural buildings, including barns and outbuildings. The farmhouse lies close to the historic Brafferton Manor, which was rebuilt in the 17th century. The manor controlled much of the surrounding farmland, and Burton Grange likely operated as one of its tenant farms. Okay, so the road that the bed and breakfast is on is called Wath Lane, which is where I'm standing right now. There's only a few houses on it. It's a dead end as well, so don't try and drive down there much further than the bed and breakfast, will you? Because you won't get very far. You'll just come to an abrupt end. So there are a couple of houses, like I said. There's one right next to the entrance, and then there's some at the end here. There's two there, I think, and one just there. The rest of Humberton is on another dead-end road, which is off the lane at the end of this lane, or at the end of Worth Lane. So we're going to hop in the car now and head down towards that. So let's see the rest of Humberton, and this will all be driving. Although the parish covers 2,320 acres, its large rural footprint doesn't tell you how small its population is. Driving into Humberton means entering a landscape shaped by centuries of farming and river activity. As you drive into Humberton, you're crossing land that was once part of the Roman territory of Isurium Brigantum, better known as the Roman town at Aldborough. Humberton lies just across the River Ure from that Roman centre. The River Ure forms the southern boundary of Humberton, and the further we drive down here, the closer we get to the river. We can't actually reach the river though, because this road is a dead end. Humberton is also not far away from the River Swale. The two rivers run close together in this part of North Yorkshire, creating fertile land that supported farming for centuries. Ordnance Survey maps show that Humberton's fields follow the natural contours of these river plains. Driving into the hamlet today, visitors see a small cluster of houses and farm buildings. Humberton Farm House is the only property of any real note. It sometimes appears in local heritage listings, but otherwise Humberton is not a lot to write home about. The parish had an estimated population of 50 people in 2013, according to North Yorkshire County Council. The 2021 census recorded 103 residents, showing that the population has grown back a little since. It's nothing like what it was in 1850, when the population was at its peak, but even that wasn't anything approaching metropolis levels. Humberton is dominated by fields, hedgerows and farmhouses, and has been used for agriculture since the year dot. Its location between two rivers makes it a good place for wildlife. Visitors often see herons, swans and other river birds around here. The presence of these species is recorded in local wildlife surveys, which show there's some healthy river ecosystems up here. So you may have noticed there when we were driving down into Humberton, there are plenty of equestrian things out there. Boroughbridge Equestrian is based down there. The main office, you may have seen that on the left hand side as we drove past it. Anyway, I'm on my way back out of Humberton now, and I've purposely stopped here in this little lay-by, and there's a reason for this. This is because As you know, for me to actually visit a place, I have to actually set foot inside the boundaries, and now I can say I have. When I was on Wath Lane, I wasn't totally sure if I had set foot in the boundaries, because even though Burton Grange farmhouse is within them, I didn't walk down its drive, so I wasn't 100% sure. But now I have officially visited Humberton. And that's really it, people. There's nothing much more to this little place, so it's a case now of driving back up the lane, turning left and heading towards Borough Bridge. Humberton, Hun's fortified farm. It began as a Saxon settlement and didn't really get much further. The hamlet is all about traditional farmhouses, open fields and quiet lanes that follow ancient routes. Humberton offers peaceful scenery which appeals to those who enjoy rural landscapes. It's not a traditional English village. It's still nice though in its own way. If you ever come here and get lost on these country lanes, don't worry, even the sheep sometimes look like they're trying to read the road signs.
By the two rivers where the fields roll wide, Hun's old stronghold stood with Saxon pride. Farms scattered softly through the open green, a parish small yet marked by all it's seen. Humberton where the rivers glide, past and present drifting side by side, fields and hedgerows shaping all that's grown, a quiet strength in every stone. Work shaped by farming stock and soil, hands earning life through steady toil, numbers shifting through each passing age, rural hearts written on each page. Humberton where the rivers glide, past and present drifting side by side, fields and hedgerows shaping all that's grown, a quiet strength in every stone. Burton Grange standing with George and Grace, farmhouse warmth in a peaceful place, herons and swans on the river's bend, nature marking where the tracks descend. Roman ground beneath the wheels you steer, is Urium's shadow still lingering here? Two broad waters shaping all they pass, life held steady in the moving grass. Humberton where the rivers glide, past and present drifting side by side, fields and hedgerows shaping all that's grown, a quiet strength in
Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.